Back in June, I made a decision to make one video for all 32 NFL teams talking about what they did during the 2025 NFL Draft. And if it's not apparent by the fact that we are in August and I have 15 videos completed as of the first of the month, it hasn't exactly gone according to plan. But that being said, I made a commitment and I'm going to see it through. So we have 17 videos to make throughout the month of August talking about the remaining teams and what they did during the draft. Now, for quick context, if you're not familiar with a draft grades video, pretty straightforward. I'm going to give you my analysis and opinions on every single pick that every team made. I'm going to then grade that pick, talk about the player, and then at the end, I will grade the draft class as a whole. I want to make it clear that these are my opinions. I'm not trying to say that I know better than your favorite NFL GM or anything like that. I just watch a lot of film, I watch a lot of football, and these are my opinions on these players and their fits with these different teams. But without further ado, I'm not going to hold you any longer. Let's go ahead and talk about whatever team we're talking about today. If I were to make a video where I sat down and ranked all 32 NFL teams based on how excited I am for them for this upcoming season, the Raiders would easily be in the mix for the top 5 because I am so intrigued by this football team. And it doesn't really have anything to do with any sort of bias. Like, I'm not a Raiders fan, I'm a Bears fan, so obviously no connections there. And it's not because they have a ton of players that I'm like a huge fan of, so I have a lot of stock in the team. Sure, I love guys like Tyree Wilson and Tommy Eichenberg and Geno Smith, but, you know, no more players on this team than any other team that I am actively following and paying attention to on a week-to-week basis. Instead, what intrigues me about this team is their current standing within their division. Because you look at the AFC West, this division is absolutely loaded. You have the Kansas City Chiefs, who I know they became a laughingstock at the end of the year because they got embarrassed in the Super Bowl. But they still won the AFC, and they've only gotten better this offseason. Then you have the Chargers, who, you know, they have Jim Harbaugh going into his second year as the coach there. I'm a big Justin Herbert guy. I really like some of the pieces they added offensively. I really like some of the pieces they have defensively. Jesse Minter's a defensive coordinator I'm a very big fan of. And then you look at the Broncos. They have easily one of the 3 to 5 best defenses in football, maybe even the best defense in football. Bo Nix is coming off a big rookie year. They have Sean Payton, who, for my money, is one of the greatest coaches of my lifetime, of the 22 years I've been on this planet. And so there's a lot of competition in this division. And then you have the Raiders, who I feel like everyone's kind of forgetting about, but they also made some notable moves this offseason in their own right. You go out, you hire Pete Carroll to be your head coach. He's obviously a very successful and decorated coach. You go out and get Geno Smith, who for my money is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league and one of the 5 best pure passers in the league. You add a bunch of guys through the draft that we'll talk about, all 11 picks they made. And then you also have some really nice talent on this team, especially some of the younger guys returning. Brock Bowers, Jackson Powers-Johnson coming into year 2. Colton Miller just got his extension. Max Crosby is still arguably the second best pass rusher in all of football. And there's some really exciting young pieces in the secondary. But the problem is with this team, compared to some of the other teams in the division, it's a lot of projection, right? Some of these young guys, you're expecting them to take a step up, or, you know, you're expecting the defensive tackle room to really figure its way out now that you don't have Christian Wilkins. Compared to some of the other teams in this division, there are some clear weaknesses to this team, but that does not mean they can't compete. And some of these draft picks they made really show me that there is a world where the Raiders could surprise some people, and that's kind of why I'm bringing this up. So let's go ahead and jump into this class, starting out, of course, with the crown jewel, the generational blue chip running back, Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, a player who, obviously, as a Bears fan, I'm very bummed did not fall like a lot of people thought he would, because the thought of him in a Ben Johnson offense, goodness gracious. But with the Raiders, obviously, is a tremendous fit. When I think of the Raiders, I think old school football, I think running the damn ball, and Ashton Jeanty is running the damn ball personified, right? This dude is a superstar. Sure, we'll go ahead and get like the negatives out of the way because there's like 2 of them, and it's the fact that he doesn't have like crazy speed. He can hit a home run, he can hit that second gear and create separation once he has the ball in open space, but you know, he's not like some crazy freak speedster like Jahmyr Gibbs, for example. And he's not that great of a pass blocker. But literally everything else is just tremendous. He's a damn good athlete. Like I said, maybe not elite speed-wise, but he can pull away from defenses on long runs. He explodes through gaps and gets up to his top speed very quickly. He has great short area quickness and lateral agility to perform jump cuts consistently and switch lanes. He has the play strength and power profile that you would want to see, and honestly is a little bit better than you might expect for someone who is under 5'9". He has elite contact balance, some of the best contact balance I've personally ever seen from a college running back, with strong legs, incredible leg drive, a low center of gravity, and great pad level that just make him a bitch to bring down. Obviously not speaking from experience, but logistically speaking, you see a guy that runs like Genty does, and you're probably thinking, man, I'm glad I don't have to be the guy that gets in front of him, right? He's able to blast through arm tackles with ease. He has fantastic patience and vision to let blocks set up and locate creases across the line of scrimmage. He's someone that consistently falls forward for extra yards. He's really light on his feet with excellent footwork and notable elusiveness to make defenders miss, both in the open space and in the backfield. He can stop and start on a dime to make defenders miss as well. He's a solid pass catcher out of the backfield. You go back and look at 2023, that was where he was most successful. Had some pretty good production that year. And he's also praised for his character and work ethic off the field. So in other words, 21-year-old running back who is like the perfect prospect. Obviously, he's up there in recent memory with like Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley for the best running back prospect of the last 10 years. Just an absolutely incredible football player. Just an awesome pick. Obviously going to be a fan favorite player pretty quickly. One of the better running backs in the league pretty quickly, I would imagine. Just a great pick for the first pick of the Spytech Carroll regime. Like I said already, I look at the Raiders, I think old school smash mouth football. Pete Carroll, he always has good run games. You look at Marshawn Lynch being with him for however long. Just coming over from Seattle, they had Kenneth Walker most recently. This pairing is absolutely fantastic, and it gives you an added element to your offense. I already mentioned adding Geno Smith in the offseason, and then they added a couple weapons in the draft. You already have Brock Bowers. You just didn't have like a solidified dominant run game. Go out and get Ashton Genty. That is going to change very quickly. So great pick here. No complaints whatsoever. Moving then into the second round, they end up trading down a little bit and selecting Jack Besh, the wide receiver out of TCU. And this is another one, man, where I really like this pickup. Besh was one of my guys in this class, just outside my top 5 receivers. Was the only one I had that didn't have some sort of first round grade on him. I had 4 receivers with a first round grade, and then Emeka Egbuka, I had a late first or early second round grade on. Besh was the first receiver I had that had a firm second round grade, had an early second round grade on him more specifically, and he goes here at the end of the second. Just an awesome pick. 6'1", 214 pounds, just like a prototypical wide receiver too, if you were to ask me. Now, granted, I think for this team, he could be the wide receiver one, just not the first option in the pecking order, because that will, of course, be Brock Bowers. But he's got a dense, filled-out frame and notable play strength that are going to make him a nightmare for some of these smaller defensive backs. He's a sure-handed pass catcher with a 1.6% career drop rate. His ball tracking ability downfield is exceptional. He's also able to contort his body for tough catches down the field, over the middle, anywhere he needs to. He's a very physical player who excels at high pointing the ball and reeling in contested catches. He uses his frame and play strength to create separation in tight quarters. He has really good length that gives him a notable catch radius. He's a damn good route runner with notable short area quickness and burst to create separation. He has great hand usage when releasing off the line. He has good experience at all 3 receiver positions, so he played in the X, as a Z, and in the slot. He also lined up a little bit at tight end every here and there, so that's fun. If you want to get really freaky and put him at tight end, put Brock out wide, and throw some defenses off, then that's probably something you could get away with. He's a legitimate threat after the catch with quickness, craftiness, and great contact balance. He's a very willing blocker in the run game. Honestly, I would say the best run blocking receiver in the class, which is very exciting given that you spent very high draft capital on Ashton Genty. He's a team first player with exceptional character, and then you look at the Senior Bowl, he killed it, caught the game-winning touchdown. Just an awesome receiver prospect. On the flip side of things, though, he was kind of a one-year wonder in college, but he just looked so good in that 1 year that it does not bother me personally. Additionally, not a burner, not someone with great long speed or explosiveness off the line or anything like that. Granted, I don't think that is something that Besh necessarily needs to his game. He has really good ways of getting around that. And also as a route runner, he is a really good route runner. It's an overall net positive for him for sure, but he does need to polish those routes up just a little bit. He rounds off his routes a little bit more than you'd like to see, and that can get him in some trouble. But again, the route running is an overall net positive. But yeah, I really like this pick. I think he fits perfectly into this receiver room. Him and Jacoby Myers can be your two guys on the outside. Just really, really good route runners who can win at all three levels. Trey Tucker, you've got him as your sort of gadgety player. Dante Thornton's your deep threat. Tommy Mellott, we'll talk about and kind of see how he projects as a receiver. And then Brock Bowers, obviously, is Brock Bowers. So low-key, this group of pass catchers for Geno Smith kind of rocks. I don't know why more people aren't talking about it. I know it is going to require some younger guys to kind of step up, but Jack Besh is one of those guys that I really, really think can step up and make a difference. So loved that pick, gave it an A, just absolutely what they needed there in the second round. But then we get into the third round, and they took Darian Porter, the corner out of Iowa State, and I'm not going to sing his praises quite as much because this is a really risky pick. That's why this is a C+ for me, is there's just a lot of risk involved with this one. Taking a 24-year-old developmental corner with 7 career starts is scary to me. Now, I get the upside for sure. 6'3", 195 pounds, absolute freak of an athlete. But when we're talking about developmental players, me personally, I want to see them in their early 20s, right? 20, 21, 22, maybe 23. Once we're talking about 24, a guy who might not catch on until he's 26, 27, he's getting that second contract up around 28. That's where things start to get a little concerning for me. So taking a look at my notes here on Porter, like I said, absolute freak athlete, really good frame and length for an NFL corner. He has great ball skills because of his experience as a wide receiver. He's a willing run defender, and he's got plenty of notable experience on special teams with 4 blocked punts and a blocked field goal to his name. However, like I said, 7 career starts across 6 collegiate seasons, very raw across the board, 24-year-old developmental rookie, not a consistent tackler, didn't really have a lot of reps in true man coverage, so it's hard to project his skill fully. Obviously, the traits lend themselves well to not getting beat over the top in man coverage and whatnot, but not enough to say, yeah, I think he can stick in a receiver's hip pocket consistently or anything like that. And also in zone coverage, his technique across the board just needs to improve. I didn't think he was that great at triggering downhill. He definitely doesn't have the experience there to have developed the instincts you want to see from an NFL corner. So right now, Porter is just such a projection. I get why the Raiders liked him. I get the athleticism. I get the frame. I get the ball skills and the receiver background, and we've seen guys like that pan out in the league, but I'm always a little bit more hesitant with them, especially when there were really good options on the board still. If you really wanted a developmental corner, Siobhan Revel, who ended up going to the Cowboys, would have been an awesome pick. Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State is someone I'll sing the praises of. Noel Williams, who goes to your division rival Kansas City Chiefs, is another player I'll sing the praises of. So when you combine the fact that this is a really risky pick on a player that I thought was overdrafted, I had a late 3rd, early 4th round grade on him. I really viewed him as more of a day 3 player, football player, but the athleticism did bump him up a little bit. You can't teach 6'3", 195 pounds with 33-inch arms and 4.3 speed, but I have my reservations with this one. We'll have to see. I know Raiders fans are immediately going to jump to some of the development they've seen in the defensive back room, and that's totally valid. That's totally legitimate. I would love to be wrong about this one, and even then, I don't think this is some atrocious pick. It's just taking a dart throw on traits at the top of the 3rd round when there are still good corners available is somewhere where I'm okay, me personally, I'm not a big fan of that, but Again, I see the appeal. I want to make that clear, and I'm not saying Darian Porter like sucks and he's never going to be any good or anything like that. I just think they passed up on better players who could have helped them right away and still had room to grow, as opposed to taking a guy who has shown us very little in 6 seasons of college football. Granted, he did transition to corner later on in those 6 seasons, but I digress. Just not a player I was personally a huge fan of. Later on then in the 3rd round, they had 2 more selections, back-to-back picks, both spent on offensive linemen, the first of which was Caleb Rogers. I have him listed as an offensive lineman, and we'll get into that in a second, out of Texas Tech. And the reason I have him listed as an offensive lineman as opposed to just a tackle or just a guard is because he played tackle in college, but to me, he projects best as a guard. And at least according to ESPN, that seems to be where the Raiders are going to play him. So it's good to see that we see eye to eye on that. And the big reason why I would say he is more of a guard than a tackle is the sub 33-inch arms. Certainly not ideal. But outside of that, 6'5", 312 pounds, decent enough athlete. He can get out in space. He can climb to the second level, things like that. He has really strong, active hands with good timing and placement that allow him to jolt defenders upright with good grip strength to then keep them in check. In pass pro, his technique is pretty solid. His anchor is definitely good and the most attractive part of his game. In the run game, he is tenacious and he plays with the pop that you want to see for sure. He does great work on combo blocks and double teams in both the pass and run game. And he's a versatile player with experience at both guard and tackle. However, as a run blocker, he is very much a work in progress. His play strength is far from ideal. I would say it's pretty underwhelming. He struggles to sustain blocks in the run game. His pad level is pretty inconsistent. And on top of that, older rookie, going to be 24 years old during his rookie season. That lack of length is very notable because by tackle standards, it's bad. By guard standards, it's like kind of barely passable. Also, a little less experience at guard than tackle, so you're projecting him to move inside. So when I take a look at Caleb Rogers here and my board, the number one thing that stands out to me is this was early. For me, I had a firm day 3 grade on Caleb Rogers, and I know we're taking him here at the end of the 3rd round. I'm talking like end of the 4th round, early 5th round was where I had Caleb Rogers. We take a look here. He was drafted with the 34th pick in the 3rd round. Some guys that were still on the board that I would have taken over him. You take a look at like a Miles Frazier out of LSU who ended up falling a little bit. Marcus Bowe out of Purdue was someone that I was very intrigued by and thought would have been a better pick here. And even like Jalen Rivers out of Miami, who's a very similar player in terms of being a projection, a developmental player kicking from tackle inside to guard. I just liked his athleticism and his tape as a run blocker more. So, again, just not my favorite pick they could have made. It's an understandable pick. Like, you're getting Caleb Rogers. He's a good pass protector. He'll be able to step in, presumably day one, as like a swing guard, maybe even a swing tackle. I don't think he's going to end up starting for them right away, but I could be wrong. Maybe he ends up beating out, who's their other guard right now? Alex Kappa. We'll have to see. But, I was definitely underwhelmed by his ability as a run blocker, and some of the other factors I already mentioned moved him down my board a little bit. So not my favorite player, but again, I get why the Raiders liked him, and I can't complain about that one too much. And then with the very next pick, again, sticking on the offensive line, they take Charles Grant, the offensive tackle out of William & Mary, who is a much better prospect, in my opinion. 6'5", 311 pounds, 34 3/4 inch arms. So he's got the frame and length you want to see for sure. He's a great athlete with good movement skills to block in space, climb to the second level, or reach block. He's a very high IQ lineman who quickly picks up on stunts and exotic blitzes. He maintains good, consistent balance throughout reps. He has very notable play strength that allowed him to move defenders off the ball consistently and aggressively. He has active, accurate hands that allow him to fight hard with great grip strength to latch on to defenders and win early in the rep. He packs a punch at the point of attack that allows him to straight up jolt defenders upright. He has really good flexibility to get his knees bent and set up a rather sturdy anchor. He's a nasty run blocker who can move guys off the line or bury them in the run game. And he does great work on combo blocks by putting his head on the defender's hip to push them down the line before climbing to the second level. However, that being said, there are two notable aspects of Grant's game that need to be cleaned up. The first of which is his pad level. There's moments of brilliance, there's moments of like, brother, you gotta get down. So definitely not consistent, definitely something that needs worked on. And then also his footwork as a pass blocker might need to be reworked from the ground up. It was very sloppy, not the most technically refined aspect of his game by any means. And then, of course, the elephant in the room. This is a player coming from William and Mary, so we're taking a look at much lesser competition. It's a big jump going from the FCS level all the way up to the NFL. But the big thing you look for with these guys is dominance, right? If they were able to just look like a man among boys on the field against these lower level of competition players, then usually that's like a very good indicator that they have a shot in the NFL, right? Charles Grant was killing dudes left and right. Like, he was a monster at William and Mary. So because of that, I'm not like super worried about his projection into the NFL. I think at the very least he has the tools and the technique and the savvy to be a good swing tackle. But honestly, I would look for him to compete for a starting job at some point in his career. He was a career left tackle. Obviously, that's not going to happen here with the Raiders because they have Colton Miller, who just got his new contract. But I would not mind seeing him in the mix at right tackle with DJ Glaze and whoever else they have over there at this point. But either way, very good pick. Like that one a lot more than the Caleb Rogers pick. And then we move into day 3. And this pick of Dante Thornton next to Darian Porter are the most Raiders picks I've ever seen. And I don't mean that as an insult per se. I know I said I wasn't very high on the Darian Porter pick, but the Raiders love their speed. They love their track stars. And obviously these are two guys that ran in the 4.3s and are just athletic freaks. So that makes a lot of sense. I will say value-wise, I did have a lower grade on Dante Thornton, but given what the Raiders needed, looking at their receiver room, they're really lacking a true, like, speed-based deep threat. Someone that can take the top off the defense and win downfield from the wide receiver position. This was just a really good pick. Again, maybe I could sit here and say, well, there were better receivers on the board, but I don't think any of them would have filled that role quite as well as Thornton can. So taking a look at my notes on him, this is a guy who is 6'5", 205 pounds, again, ran a 4.3, just has the perfect combination of size, athletic tools, and length. He's got over 32-inch arms, which will help him beat press. He's a legit burner who can take the top off the defense and separate downfield consistently. He has surprisingly fluid hips for a 6'5" receiver. He's capable of plucking the ball out of thin air with a large catch radius and consistent hands. He has great concentration when hauling in passes in traffic. He tracks the ball downfield well and can contort his body to get underneath it. He's more than capable of beating press with varied releases and confident strikes at the line. He can pull away from more physical corners with hand fighting and play strength. He's capable of making plays after the catch with good speed and burst. And also, he has a really good frame and understanding of blocking and angles and whatnot in the run game, so definitely going to be a help there. But then on the flip side of things, the reason I had a day 3 grade on Dante Thornton is because of his route running. He is not good at it, like at all. He is good at running deep routes, obviously your fades, your streaks, your posts, things of that nature. And then he can run a comeback like no other. That man runs crisp comebacks. He absolutely kicks ass on them. But outside of that, he doesn't cut super sharply. He's not like really good at head fakes and his breaks and whatnot. He's just a really raw route runner. However, though, with this receiver room, that's not the end of the world. Again, you look at Jacoby Myers and Jack Besh as two really good route runners. Dante Thornton is coming in to, at least right away, be more of that deep threat. Additionally, after the catch, he's not the most creative guy in the world. He can make plays after the catch, but it's going to be just because he's able to take good angles and is super fast. Not the end of the world, but definitely something worth noting. Also, his volume in college was really low. He had a career high of 26 receptions, which is criminally low for an NFL receiver in terms of college production. So definitely something to keep in mind. And also, he's just not a consistent player. He had a really bad tendency to totally disappear from games at Tennessee, and obviously, you don't want to see that. But stepping into this room as, at best, the fourth option in the passing game, behind Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh, I think you'll be all right. I think you'll be able to live with him being a little streaky. When taking a look at Thornton and kind of like projecting his role at the next level, the best way I can explain it, the first name that comes to mind is like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling, where he is just a deep threat. Granted, Dante Thornton can catch the football, and that is a big difference between the two of them. But, he's just not somebody you're probably going to expect to catch passes over the middle very often. He's not somebody you're designing plays for to get him open underneath. You are saying, Gino, we are going to send him on a streak, let it fly, put it out in front of him, let him run underneath of it, and take the top off the defense on, second down when you want to take a deep shot, or first down if you want to take a deep shot, whenever. And that's probably what he's going to make a career out of early on. Very much a role player in this receiver room. There could be a world where he develops into more of a route runner and could have a more diverse game, but right now, that's just not what he is, and that's okay. He doesn't need to be with some of the guys around him. Later on then, in the fourth round, they end up taking Tonka Hemingway, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina, which, obviously, elephant in the room right away. All-time football name. Tonka Hemingway is crazy, and also just became much more important to this football team given the release of Chris Jones a few days ago. But I go back and forth with Hemingway because obviously being a 284-pound defensive tackle is not quite ideal. But I do see the appeal and I do see the upside. So taking a look at some of my notes on him here, he has good height and good length for an NFL defensive tackle. This is a guy who is 6'3" with 33-inch arms, so definitely not lacking in either of those categories. He's a very high IQ player who often sniffs out screens and read options. Fantastic athlete with just under a 995 RAS score. Very good lateral movement and notable explosiveness for sure. He has a really good first step with the ability to weaponize his momentum for negative plays for opposing offenses. His high motor is by far his most redeeming trait. Like, yeah, he's a freak athlete, but that wouldn't matter nearly as much if this dude knew the definition of the word quit. He has pretty good run diagnostics. He's able to deploy quick, active hands in the passing game to fight off blockers. He does a good job shooting gaps against the run. He has a notable arsenal of moves with spins, clubs, and swims at his disposal. He has really good bend and body control for an interior player, and he is able to get his hands into passing windows when he can't quite create pressure. That being said, though, another one of these older developmental rookies will be 24 years old during his rookie season. He flashes a solid anchor, but it is far from consistent. He's somebody that's not going to be able to consistently two-gap. He's not going to hold up against double teams. His bull rush is very underwhelming and requires major development. He needs to work on his consistency as a tackler as well. There's way too many missed tackles on tape. His pad level is another inconsistent aspect of his game. He struggles to stack and shed against the run, which really shouldn't be an issue with his good length and accurate hand placement, but unfortunately it is. And as a pass rusher, his plan is pretty one-dimensional. But bringing him in as a DPR on the interior is fine. I don't have any complaints with that. I get the athleticism, I get the motor. Bringing him in as a backup that you throw out there on third down and kind of hold his own a little bit on early downs with run plays and whatnot. Definitely can't say anything too negative there. There were some players on the board that I would have looked at over him. Guys like Jordan Phillips, Ty Hamilton, who both went after him. Riley Mills out of Notre Dame could have been a fun name that's a very similar profile. Aeneas Peebles, who ended up falling to the Ravens, would have been another player I'd go to bat for. And then their next pick, J.J. Pegues, the defensive tackle / fullback out of Ole Miss, is another player that I would have considered in this range, ironically. Now, granted, they ended up with him, so no harm, no foul there. But I love J.J. Pegues, man. He is so fun. A little bit undersized at 6'2.5" with 32.5-inch arms, but that doesn't matter. It does not matter with the way he plays. Good bulk for his size at 309 pounds. Explosive mover with good closing speed and athletic tools as a whole. He possesses a very explosive first step to shoot gaps. He's a high motor player who doesn't take plays off despite playing two ways in college, and we'll talk more about that in a second. He has good play strength and strong arms with heavy, active hands to win at the point of attack. He can stack and shed, even with his arms being a little bit on the shorter side. He's able to do that pretty consistently. He shoots gaps against the run to make plays in the backfield. He has really good hand usage as a pass rusher with a good spin move and a Superman chop move to his name. He has really good bend for an interior player. He's reliable and productive in short yardage situations as a runner. And he's a former tight end who ran and honestly killed tight end position drills at the combine. On the flip side of things, though, another one of these older rookies will be 24 his rookie year. Lacks the ideal height and length you want to see for the position. His instincts as a defensive lineman are still developing because of how new he is to the position. His anchor is nothing to write home about. He's not somebody that can two-gap, but if you're asking him to two-gap, what are you doing as a coach? Same thing with double teams. He's not very good at handling them. And also as a pass rusher, his counters are still a work in progress. But when it comes to JJ Pegues, you're drafting him, again, to be a little bit more of a pass rusher than a run defender. But not only is he going to give you that, that value on defense, but he can also step in on offense. You look just in this division, there's another team who has an athletic defensive lineman playing both defensive tackle and fullback in Scott Matlock of the Chargers. That's 2 videos in a row I've been able to talk about Scott Matlock. That makes my heart happy. But, they've been able to make that work, and JJ Pegues has way more experience playing on offense as a blocker, as someone who can take handoffs on the goal line, things like that. So Pegues, he better make this football team. I don't think there's a world where he doesn't, especially with Christian Wilkins getting cut. You need all the depth you can get on the defensive line, and I'm really, really hoping the Raiders get him involved on offense. It would be a complete wasted opportunity to not. There have been other examples as well of guys who play this kind of like hybrid lineman fullback role. Pegues, though, is one of the guys that I truly, truly believe in being able to do that. If you're new to the channel, that's my thing. I talk about fullbacks as much as I can. I haven't gotten to that much this summer because of being swamped with this series, but I've taken every opportunity I've been able to get to be able to do that. And I really, really hope they're able to work him in some 21-22 personnel. Have him lead block for Ashton Genty, have him take a fullback dive on the goal line, maybe even catch a pass out of the backfield or two, which he's pretty good at doing. So I'm really, really excited to see what he's going to do with the Raiders. Immediately becomes one of my favorite players on this team, and I hope he has a long, exciting career with the Raiders. Definitely my favorite pick they made. While I was working on editing this video, the Raiders went out and made a trade that is pretty significant, especially when you consider some of the picks they made this year, specifically the Darian Porter pick, and then the last 2 picks we just talked about, the 2 defensive tackles, because they went out and they traded Jacorian Bennett, one of the more promising young corners in the league, to the Eagles for Thomas Booker, a defensive tackle. And I just want to say in the video right here, so I don't get a bunch of comments about it, this does not impact my grade for any of those picks or the overall draft, because that would be grading with hindsight, and that's not exactly fair. So I made these grades or decided these grades way back in April, maybe into May, like during the spring when the picks were fresh, when I had time to sit down and analyze them and whatnot. And that goes for all 32 teams. So I don't think it would be fair to the teams I talked about back in June if I'm talking about, bumping up or down grades based on moves that were made in August. So again, because of that, that does not play into the overall grade or any of the grades for the players that this would impact, even if that move is very, very questionable. But with that said and out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about these last couple picks and get out of here. But that was in the 6th round, and continuing on in the 6th round, they made 2 more selections, the first of which was Tommy Mellott, the wide receiver out of Montana State, transitioning over from the quarterback position. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't get to watch a whole lot of film on Mellott, but projection's pretty straightforward, right? This is an athletic, dual-threat quarterback who unfortunately just didn't have the chops as a passer to continue his career as a quarterback. But being 5'11", 200 pounds, He's got really good speed and explosiveness that was on full display at his pro day. He's got loose hips that should allow him to become a solid route runner pretty quickly. He gets to top speed quickly. He's good at pulling away from defenders. And honestly, he can probably get involved in some, specific packaged gadget quarterback sets, a little Taysom Hill type action perhaps. But, taking a guy like this in the 6th round where he is a total projection to a new position, that's fine. No complaints there. The only thing I will say is there were still really good receivers on the board, guys that I was a pretty big fan of and thought could be a contributor in this receiver room. You look at a guy like Ricky White out of UNLV, Tez Johnson out of Oregon could have been another pick as well. So those two guys, I probably would have favored them over Tommy Millott, but I get why the Raiders liked him, and this one, being that it's in the 6th round, not one I can really complain about whatsoever. You're just trying to find a guy that'll make the roster, and I definitely think there is a world where Millott can do just that as a wide receiver. We'll have to see. Maybe it doesn't work out for him, but that's a fun risk to take in the 6th round. And once again, I cannot complain about that. 2 picks later, they take another athletic dual threat quarterback, this time a guy who's actually going to stick at the position in Cam Miller out of North Dakota State. Again, a really athletic quarterback prospect, had 2,200 rushing yards and 48 rushing touchdowns in college. He's very smart, knows when to tuck the ball and take it himself if nothing is there, handles pressure like a professional by being able to keep his eyes downfield while stepping up in the pocket, and can also roll out with his legs. Shows flashes of being able to go through his progressions. He's able to string together long drives with short, safe passes. Hardly throws turnover-worthy passes, which can be seen by him only averaging 4 interceptions per season over the past 4 years. He has a really quick release that's going to help a lot with the short passing game. He has a good understanding of coverages and situational football that allow him to always find that first down marker. On the flip side of things, though, he is not the biggest quarterback in the world. Talking about someone that's 6 foot, 215 pounds. Ball placement is often bad. It ends up behind the intended receiver or low towards the ground, forcing them to make tougher catches. Often gets away from proper mechanics and makes throws off his back foot or a bad platform that will cause inaccuracies. His turnovers come from forcing passes into small windows with minimal chance for a completion, so definitely don't want to see that. He lacks the confidence in his ability to throw the deep ball consistently. And also, because he is on the older side as a prospect, 23 years old, will be 24 in October, not the biggest guy in the world, and just isn't a solid, developed quarterback. His ceiling, I wouldn't say, is all that high. But that being said, you're not really drafting Cam Miller based on his upside. You're drafting him to say, okay, he'll be a solid backup for us. And when you look at this quarterback room, he can be a good QB3 behind Aiden O'Connell and Geno Smith. I will say, though, one critique with this pick, why it's a B+ and not higher, is because as much as I love Geno, he is on the older side, and you do kind of want to start thinking about a world without Geno here in a couple years. And I would have really, really liked to have seen them take Quinn Ewers, who ended up going to Miami in the 7th round. He's somebody that has the tools and the upside to be a starting quarterback in the league. So bringing him into the building now, getting him the ability to work behind Geno, be that QB3 behind him and Aiden O'Connell. And finally, just a couple picks into the 7th round, their last pick was Cody Lindenberg, the linebacker out of Minnesota. He's a good athlete with good lateral movement, decent play strength, has good awareness and zone coverage. He is really good at timing when to rush the quarterback so he can avoid blockers and things of that nature. He uses shiftiness to avoid blockers downfield in run defense or, after a completion. He has really good contact balance, so he's not going to get knocked off his marks by blockers. Decent play strength, and he's not somebody that came off the field a whole lot for Minnesota. That being said, though, his run fits were very inconsistent. His gap discipline was bad and definitely needs to improve. Not somebody who is really good at switching directions in coverage or, if he's got to flip his hips and run the other way to chase down a ball carrier. He's not somebody that fights through blocks consistently. He almost just kind of accepts defeat, it seems like, more often than not. He loses his eyes when he gets in a position in which he's engaged with a blocker and either looks directly at the blocker or down and will let running backs run by him. Tight ends often beat him off the ball in the run game. He's too impatient in run defense as well, as opposed to kind of waiting for the ball carrier and seeing where he's going to go. He'll just run straight at a blocker and take on a blocker. That's not what you want to see your linebacker do. He has a little bit of hesitation when it comes to rushing the passer. And then when he's coming downhill, his tackling technique needs work. He comes in with high pad level, very erratic feet. Just not someone I was a super big fan of, but again, 7th round, you're looking for a guy that might make the team. I can see a world where he's a special teamer for them. That being said, though, I am going to bring up the one linebacker that I brought up for like every day 3 linebacker pick, Sean Dolak, who ended up going to the Los Angeles Rams as a UDFA. I would have taken him over Lindenberg in a heartbeat. I get it, he went to a smaller school, and he is a little bit smaller, but Lindenberg's only 6'2", 236. It's not like he was some big athletic freak, and it was very apparent they were betting on traits. They just took a guy that they thought could be a solid run defender with a little bit of development. And even then, I don't necessarily disagree. I just think Sean Dolak would have been a much better pick. Again, I'm splitting hairs over a 7th rounder, but you look at this linebacker room with Landon Roberts, Jermaine Pratt, and Tommy Eichenberg as your 3 starters, Devin White also in the mix. I think Sean Dolak could have competed for a starting spot day 1 as a 7th round pick if they would have brought him in. But all that being said, I do like this Raiders class quite a bit. Going to give it a B+. Definitely a lot of guys who I see contributing right away, most notably Genty and Besh. Some of these other guys like J.J. Pegues, Dante Thornton, Tonka Hemingway, I absolutely see a role for them day 1 that they are going to be able to fill. Darian Porter, we'll have to see how he develops. Again, really would like to be wrong about him because that would be a super fun corner to see in the league. And then other guys like Caleb Rogers and, some of the guys that they took at the end of the draft. A little bit more on the pure developmental side. We'll have to see how they pan out, if they make the roster, things like that. I'm sure Caleb Rogers will make the roster, but for guys like Malott, Miller, Lindenberg, we'll see if they end up making the roster, because obviously that's not a guarantee with 6th and 7th rounders. That is going to do it for this video, though. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like down below, as it does help out the channel a ton. It shows your support, it shows your care, and I really do appreciate it. Also, make sure to subscribe for more NFL content coming your way throughout the offseason, into the regular season, and beyond. We're finally halfway through these videos. I have put myself in hell, but I've set a goal for myself that I just need to get them done by week 1, and I think I will absolutely be able to do that. Also, make sure to stick around for the very end of the video, because I do have a link to a Raiders film breakdown that I'm sure you Raiders fans will enjoy. I actually said in that video, ironically, that I liked the upside of the Raiders, and if they got a quarterback, watch out. They got their quarterback in Geno Smith, so we'll have to see if I was being a little overzealous or if I was being right on cue with my excitement for some of the younger pieces on the Raiders. Also, make sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about this draft class. Was I too high, too low on anybody? I'm sure I'll get some comments about Darian Porter. And again, I want to make it clear for like the 5th time, I want to be wrong. I want to be the guy that was a little bit too low on Darian Porter, but I have my reservations with his profile, with his projection. We'll just have to see how that ends up panning out. Also, in the comments, let me know just like your general thoughts on the Raiders. Are you excited for this upcoming season? I know I would be if I was a Raiders fan. Getting Genty and having Geno and some of these young pieces, there's plenty to get excited about. So, like I said, definitely let me know all that down in the comments below. And with all that said, I'm going to bring this up again because it is the most important part of the video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it, because you're all wonderful people, and you truly do deserve it.
Had a chance on the throwback. This was an ill-advised throw. What an unbelievable catch by Cole Kmet. And he cups it too. No movement when he hits the ground, tucked up against his shoulder.
Wow. Using that